Welcome to the ports and shipping news from Visakhapatnam. GDP data for China, the US, and the other G7 countries for the year 2023 has now been published. This makes possible an accurate assessment of China's, the US, and major economies' performance, both in terms of China's domestic goals and international comparisons. There are two key reasons this is important. First, for China's domestic reasons, to achieve a balanced estimate of China's socialist economic situation and therefore the tasks it faces. Second, because the US has launched a quite extraordinary propaganda campaign, including numerous straightforward factual falsifications, to attempt to conceal the real international economic facts. The factual situation is that China's economy, as it heads into 2024, has far outgrown all other major comparable economies. This reality is in total contradiction to claims in the US media. This in turn, therefore, demonstrates the extraordinary distortions and falsifications in the US media about this situation. It confirms that, with a few honorable exceptions, Western economic journalism is primarily dominated by, in some cases quite extraordinary, fake news rather than any objective analysis. Both for understanding the economic situation and the degree of distortion in the US media, it is therefore necessary to establish the facts of current international developments. China's growth targets. Starting with China's strategic domestic criteria, it has set clear goals for its economic development over the next period, which will complete its transition from a developing to a high-income economy by World Bank international standards. In precise numbers, in 2020's discussion around the 14th Five-Year Plan, it was concluded that for China by 2035, it is entirely possible to double the total or per capita income. Such a result would mean China decisively overcoming the alleged middle-income trap and, as the 20th Party Congress stated, China reaching the level of a medium-developed country by 2035. In contrast, a recent series of Western reports, widely used in anti-China propaganda, claim that China's economy will experience sharp slowdown and will fail to reach its targets. Self-evidently, which of these outcomes is achieved is of fundamental importance for China's entire national rejuvenation and construction of socialism. As Xi Jinping stated, China's path takes economic development as the central task, and brings along economic, political, cultural, social, ecological, and other forms of progress. But the outcome also affects the entire global economy. For example, a recent article by the chair of Rockefeller International, published in the Financial Times, made the claim that what was occurring was China's economy losing share to its peers. The Wall Street Journal asserted, China's economy limps into 2024, whereas in contrast the US was marked by a resilient domestic economy. The British Daily Telegraph proclaimed China has a stagnant economy. The Washington Post headline proclaimed China has a stagnant economy. The Washington Post headlined that, falling inflation, rising growth give US the world's best recovery, with the article claiming, in the United States, the surprisingly strong economy is outperforming all of its major trading partners. This is allegedly because, through the end of September, it was more than 7% larger than before the pandemic. That was more than twice Japan's gain and far better than Germany's anemic 0.3% increase. Numerous similar claims could be quoted from the US media. US use of fake news. Reading US media claims on these issues, and comparing them to the facts. It is impossible to avoid the conclusion that what is involved is deliberate, fake news, for propaganda purposes. As will be seen, the only alternative explanation is that it is disgracefully sloppy journalism that should not appear in supposedly quality media. For example, it is simply absurdly untrue, genuinely fake news, that the US is outperforming all of its major trading partners, or that China has a stagnant economy. Anyone who bothers to consult the facts, an elementary requirement for a journalist, can easily find out that such claims are entirely false. To first give an example regarding US domestic reports, before dealing with international aspects, a distortion of US economic growth in 2023 was so widely reported in the US media that it is again hard to avoid the conclusion that this was a deliberate misrepresentation to present an exaggerated view of US economic performance. Factually, the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the U.S. official statistics agency for economic growth, reported that U.S. GDP in 2023 rose by 2.5%, for comparison China's GDP increased by 5.2%. But a series of U.S. media outlets, starting with the Wall Street Journal, instead proclaimed that the U.S. economy grew 3.1% over the last year. Over the 4 years since the beginning of the pandemic, Canada's GDP grew by 5.4%, Italy by 3.1%, the UK by 1.8%, France by 1.7%, Japan by 1.1% and Germany by 0.7%. Over the same period, China's economy, therefore, grew almost 4 times as fast as Canada, almost 7 times as fast as Italy, 11 times as fast as the UK, 12 times as fast as France, 18 times as fast as Japan and almost 29 times as fast as Germany. A GDP comparison using the IMF's January 2024 projections shows that from 2019 to 2023, China grew by 20.1%, India by 17.5%, Brazil by 7.7%, Russia by 3.7% and South Africa by 0.9%. The outperformance by China immediately shows why it is extremely misleading when proposals are made that China should move toward the macroeconomic structure of Western economies. If China adopts the structure of a Western economy, then, of course, China will slow down to the same growth rate as that of Western economies. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.